Along the stretch of US 41 just outside Brooksville, there's a building you've probably driven past without a second thought. These days, it's a café, serving up Cuban sandwiches and sweet tea to folks just passing through. But back in 1925, this wasn't just a roadside stop. It was the beating heart of a dream built by immigrants chasing something better: clean air, open land, and a future they could finally call their own. They came here believing they'd found paradise, and for a while, they were right. Until one night when the cold came, and everything changed. This is the story of Masaryktown, Florida, a lost immigrant utopia, and the stubborn, unshakable spirit that refused to let it die. To understand Masaryktown, we have to start from Florida's sunshine. Up north, in the factories and coal mines of places like Pennsylvania, New York, and Ohio, Czech and Slovak immigrants were working themselves to the bone. They had traded one hard life for another, and somewhere between the smoke and steel, the dream of something better started to take shape. That dream found a voice in a man named Joseph Josak, a newspaper editor in New York. He had an idea. What if they didn't just survive in America? What if they built something of their own? A community, a place rooted in land, not factories, a place where they could breathe again. So in 1924, families gathered, pooled their resources, and took a leap of faith toward a place most of them had never even seen: Hernando County, Florida. To them, it might as well have been Eden. They formed the Hernando Plantation Company. Buy shares, get land, build a future. Simple on paper, backbreaking in reality. But they did it anyway. By 1925, families were arriving, clearing land, planting citrus groves, and building homes from nothing but sweat and stubborn hope. They named their town Masaryktown after Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk, the first president of Czechoslovakia, a symbol of freedom, identity, and independence. And right at the center of it all stood the Masaryk Hotel. That building you drove past, that was their anchor. A place for newcomers, a gathering space, a living room for an entire town trying to find its footing. Within just a couple years, hundreds of acres cleared, thousands of citrus trees planted, homes, a school, a dairy, a store. For a moment, they had done it. They had built paradise. But Florida has a secret, and sometimes it waits. In the late 1920s, a series of brutal freezes swept through the state. Not a cold snap, not a bad season, a killing frost. The kind that doesn't just damage crops, it erases them. Those citrus groves, that entire future they planted, gone, overnight. Imagine waking up and realizing everything you built, everything you bet on, had just frozen solid. And there was nothing you could do about it. Families left, homes emptied. The dream that once held over 300 people shrunk down to just a handful. Masaryktown didn't disappear, but it became something quieter, something wounded. Now this is where most stories would end, but not this one, because the people who stayed, they weren't done. They tried vegetables. They tried anything that might work. And then someone tried chickens. And somehow, that worked. As one resident later said, that panned out. Then we all went to chickens. And just like that, Masaryktown was reborn. By the 1940s, this tiny town had become something incredible, the egg capital of Florida. At one point, they were producing 7 out of every 10 eggs in the entire state, from citrus to chickens, from collapse to comeback. Not because it was easy, but because they refused to quit. If you're enjoying stories like this, stories of places that refuse to fade quietly, go ahead and hit subscribe, because history like this, it deserves to be remembered. But time moves forward, and eventually it catches up. By the 1960s, industrial farming took over. Big operations, bigger output. The small family farms of Masaryktown couldn't compete. And just like that, another chapter came to a close. But this time, no one left. Because by now, this wasn't just a dream, it was a home. The town shifted again into a quiet residential community, and if you look closely, you can still see the story written into the streets. North and South roads named after American presidents. East and West streets named after Slovak and Czech figures. A map of identity. Old world meeting new. Today, Masaryktown is small. Quiet, easy to miss if you're not paying attention. But that building, the old Masaryk Hotel, it's still standing. Now it's a cafe serving Cuban sandwiches instead of housing new arrivals. And honestly, that might be the most Florida twist of all. Because this place has always been about people, about movement, about change, about building something new out of whatever life hands you. The groves are gone, the chickens are gone, but the spirit, still here. Masaryktown isn't a story about failure. It's a story about endurance, about what happens when a dream dies and the people behind it decide to dream again anyway. So maybe the real question isn't, did the town succeed? Maybe it's this: what makes something last? The plan? Or the people willing to rebuild when that plan falls apart? Next time you pass a place like this, a quiet building, a roadside cafe, a forgotten historic marker, take a second look. Because sometimes you're not just passing by. You're driving through someone else's entire story.